Yes, good day, everyone. Welcome to Variety Podcast. Uh, we are your host, Korede and Isaac. Um, if you missed the last episode, I think you should take time and listen to it because that's when you can get a bit of context into what we are going to talk about today. We are still talking on the same issues regarding money, PND matters, bank issues, bank restrictions. Uh, Interesting topic. We've already done an episode one of this. You should take time and listen to that. So today we'll focus more on what happens in courts. Usually when the matter is filed, as you as the client or you as the applicant in this case, uh, what happens in court. So let's start from there. What goes on in court. How is the process like? So just take us through it, Isaac.
All right, thank you, Brady. So for most the what is usually involved in situations like this is when you mistakenly send money to someone or when your account is frozen. So in those two instances, we file applications to court. There's something we call the motion or notice, file it to court,
Mm,
and we're praying the court for or we're asking the court to do these things. So in these circumstances, you're asking the court to unfreeze your account or to reverse the money you mistakenly sent to someone. And I want to
mm,
expatiate a bit on reversals and how they work. When you want to send some money to someone, you put in the account number, the account name pops up, and then you send in your amount. Sometimes people make mistakes and they send maybe number and they press in the wrong account number. Maybe it's the difference of a number, but maybe they put it over themselves or they misalign and then another name pops up, but they didn't pay mind to it and they send the money to that account instead of the account they intended to send money to. Or maybe they already had the beneficiary and you may be almost asleep and you're not really paying attention to what you are doing and you realize, oh, I already mistakenly sent money to someone. So
mm,
it's something like that necessitates that you go to court to get an order of court to order
mm,
that bank which that person maintains account with to reverse your money back to you. But ordinarily, you can't do it without that person's permission. And it gets complicated where the person you mistakenly sent money to, who you probably don't know, has moved the money out of your account or intends to move the money out of the account. Once people see free money in this kind of economic situation in Nigeria, they just pack it and quickly send it to somewhere else or withdraw it. So what we do is you will need if
mm,
you what you do in that circumstance. Sorry to be going out of line a bit. What you do in circumstance where reversal, where you basically send money to someone. First of all, is contact your bank. Once you contact your
mm,
bank, they will tell you you need a court order. But before they do that, they will place a temporary restriction on that person's account you mistakenly sent money to. So that's enough. That's to preserve the funds, and it's also a CBN regulation for them to do that. If there's a report that someone mistakenly sent money to you, the bank is obligated to restrict your account for a period of time, pending when they'll get an order to reverse or to keep that account restricted. So, so in circumstances like that, contact your bank. The bank would tell you would freeze that account temporarily, and you tell you to get a court order to reverse the money. Unless, of course, you can get the other person contacts in which you mistakenly sent money to, if they are known to you, to return it back, which in most cases is usually unlikely. But in normal circumstances, you can reach out to the reach out to the bank. The bank would do that for you. Then reach out to a lawyer who will get a court order and then um, apply to the court to reverse the money in your account. So the process involves a lawyer going to court, filing this application at the registry, and
mm,
then a date will be given to come and you know tell the court what happened and ask the court to unfreeze the account. Usually, depending on the state, it can take between one. It can take between 2 to 4. 2 to 4 or 5 weeks to before the matter will be granted, because situations court procedure requires you to serve the bank with that application that you want to reverse the money, and to also serve the person you want to reverse the money from through their bank. So the whole process takes about 2 to 5 weeks, depending on where you do it, depending on the procedure of the jurisdiction which you apply for it. But once you apply for it and the court is convinced that, oh yes, you made a mistake, they will grant the application. And sometimes we don't just ask the court to reverse the money. We put some other requests as well. We say reversal of this amount that was mistakenly transferred from this person's account to this person's account. Or we say, in case the money that we mistakenly transfer to this person's account is not up to the money we are looking for, any amount that is in that account should be reversed. So
mm,
we are covering ourselves there because we know that there's a possibility that that person we mistakenly sent money to has already depleted that money and spent some of it. And then sometimes we pray for the restriction of his BVN, which links to his other accounts. So the restriction of his BVN, which links to other accounts which that person uses, so that that person will be at least forced to reach out to the bank and say, hey, what is going on? Oh, I cannot use any of my accounts. What is going on? Then the person will realize that, oh, your account is being restricted because of a fraud issue in which someone mistakenly sent you money, and instead of returning it back, you quickly spent it. So this is what's going on. And sometimes some people don't do it with goodwill. It's not that they mistakenly sent money to someone. Sometimes they do it because it was a contract and they wanted to get out of the contract. Let's say me and you had the transaction, you sold me some materials, and I wanted
similar
to
to chargebacks.
yeah, and I pay you, and then I decided that I don't want to pay this guy. Let me just lie that I
Mm,
mistakenly sent money to him. And then some people do it and try to get away with it. And that's where you would come in also and say, oh, this money was a contract issue, not a mistaken reversal. I know this guy, this was our prior contract, this was our prior conversation to this, like that, like that. So basically that's how it works.
okay, so uh, there's something that I want to clarify for our listeners. A lot of people might think that some of these things is only applicable to commercial banks and not fintech apps. That the process for fintech app is quite different. Maybe you should speak a bit on a little on that, so that we can clear that clear that.
Well, I think it applies to both equally. I think sometimes it applies to both. But I mean, by if I fintech app, you mean like OPay, PalmPay, and the rest?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh yeah, it applies to them as well. In fact, most times, most reversals I did, or most applications to unfreeze accounts that I did were with OPay and some of these
Mm,
fintech apps like that.
fintech
And
apps.
OPay is preferable for quick transactions, for easy transactions, because they are quite efficient in that. So most people prefer to use OPay, and most people that are involved in crypto transactions prefer to use some of these fintech apps or some of these lesser known apps that have this thing that don't really have a lot of network issues that are quite fast. So everyone wants to work efficiently like that. So
Mm,
why most people use it, and therefore they have a lot of complaints. They freeze a lot of accounts. If I remember, me and you also did a case kind of last year to this year, in which the
mm,
guy's
yeah.
account was depleted as a result of an order that was gotten from Abuja. The guy resides in Osun State, and we had to go to Abuja to get them to set aside the order. And then we still sent it to that fintech bank which he maintains accounts with to unfreeze his account, and they were still shifting the goalpost that, hey, uh, you should tell us the crypto this thing he traded with. And I was like, no, he doesn't have to tell you. You have an order of court. You obeyed the order of court. We got the same order of court telling you that that order has been set aside and you need to release the account. So you cannot start shifting the goalpost and telling us, oh, this is now what you need to do to freeze it. So we threatened them with a well-written letter that you need to comply with the order, or will take it to court over contempt of court and even breach of his fundamental right. And yeah, most people, when their accounts are frozen, usually take the approach um of being their fundamental rights being breached by the bank. They usually take that approach. Like, you freeze my account, you are denying me my right to own property. That is the
mm,
approach I see most people take when it comes to freezing of accounts. So it's not just, oh, unfreeze my account. It's that, no, unfreeze my account and pay me damages, because by freezing my account, you have also harmed me. You have harmed my business. You have harmed my livelihood. So you need to unfreeze my account because you have breached my fundamental right to own property. You have inconvenienced me and you have caused harm to me. Imagine if someone who had a relative or a loved one in the hospital and their accounts are frozen and they cannot get funds out that they need to treat that person. I can't imagine the kind of situation they would be in, and then a bank does not have sufficient valid reason to freeze that account. It's going to be a breach on their fundamental rights. So, yeah, that's the approach people take, and definitely applies to these fintech apps as well.
mm, mm. Um, Another thing I would like to ask, I think, is more about the end process of all these things. I see there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's about the end process of all these things. A lot of people, can ask the question that, oh, after going all these things, after going all this application, blah blah blah. I think you've kind of answered it in this like question I just asked you. But what if they don't refund my money back? Because that's the whole point of all these things at the end of the day. That's what a client is most concerned about. My like is until that money gets back to my account, or if my account restriction is removed, that is when they can say that, okay, you've worked well. You
Mm.
can file 100 application as a lawyer, and if that money has not entered, you've not done your work. So what are the alternative recourse for a client if this? I think you've mentioned a real life situation where you have to write a letter, and you know that that they were able to return back the client's money. But in
Mm.
situations where you even write letter, what can be done?
Okay. So for this particular client that
Mm,
I wrote a letter for, the fintech bank almost immediately listed restriction on his account. They saw the threat, they took it seriously, and they listed restriction on his account. And there are ways in which to get banks or people to comply with orders of court, unless it will be impossible for them to comply. For example, the money you mistakenly sent to someone has been depleted. And I said it before, I've been on the side of the banks, I represented banks before. And someone
mm,
wants to refund of their money from that is being maintained in an account that is with the bank. So they are telling the bank, oh, give me my money that I'm mistakenly sent to this person that maintains an account with your bank. And what the bank would say is, well, the money you're asking for is not enough. Is not what is there. The person has cleared it. So we cannot give you what we don't have, right? So it will be impossible for the bank to do. So that depends on you to ask the bank through the courts to do some other things. That's why I said we sometimes ask the courts to restrict all the accounts of that person linked to their BVN.
mm,
And depending on the course in which you take that to, that prayer will be granted. That's
mm.
for the sake of justice. That prayer should be granted. But then, as
Mm,
a lawyer, I also don't like to assure my clients that 100% they're going to get this, because some things are out of my control. I am not the judge. I only simply appeal to the judge to do something for me. So if the judge in his prerogative looks at it and is not convinced, he may reject it and refuse it and say, "Yeah, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to grant this your request."
mm.
So, and the same thing also goes with restriction of accounts. You want the bank to restrict your accounts because what they did was wrong. They didn't give a reason, they didn't give a court order. I said yesterday they usually need the court order to do it. If not a court
Yeah.
order where fraud has been complained on it and what have you. So sometimes when a request to freeze an account or unrestrict an account is made, a bank a bank's fallback is these things.
mm,
But if they do not have any of this justification and the court tells them to unfreeze your account and they refuse, you can take them to court for contempt. Because the way an order of court works is that it's almost like a governmental order. The governmental because they are part of the government, the judiciary, legislature, and the
mm,
executive. If the judiciary gives an order, you have to follow it. If not, it is disrespectful to refuse. It is disrespectful to say, I'm not going to answer these guys. So there's a procedure we call contempt procedure, which means we gave you an order, you refuse to do it. Come and explain why you refuse to do it. If not, we will lock you up and we will punish you. So usually
mm,
contempt proceedings are directed at a bank manager
mm,
because he is in the position of enforcing that order. He's in a position of complying with that order that the court has given him to do. So if he doesn't do it, contempt procedure is directed at him. So he has to come and give explanation. Why have you refused to do this? Why should we not lock you up? Because what he did was disrespectful. So usually when they see a contempt proceeding, if they're not willing to go ahead before, they will quickly do it. If not, if they have a valid reason, then they'll come and explain, hey, sorry, we did not see your request until much later. This person's account has
mm,
been deleted. You did not know. So they will try and give as much excuse as possible. The fact there's a case we did in Oshubu, representing one of these banks, and they froze the account of a particular person with complaint of fraud and everything. And this person took them to the magistrate court, told them to unfreeze his account. Magistrate court granted the application, and the bank still refused to do it. And this was as a result of the fact that this person, the matter is still ongoing as an investigation with the EFCC. So the bank, even without a court order, restricted his account, did not let it go. So the person did contempt proceeding against the bank, and we now have to appeal that magistrate court ruling to the High Court on several grounds. The magistrate court not having jurisdiction to even grant that kind of order in the first place, and the bank having justification to freeze that account on the fact that CBN allows it to, and because of the contract between the bank and the customer and things like that. So, contempt proceeding kind of, enforces in a way an order that the court has given.
mm. Thank you very much for that. The from all what I can get from it is that there is always a recourse for the client. You know, in as much as you take appropriate and legal step with the consultation of your lawyer, there's always a recourse. In as much, even I mean, we don't want to get more deeply into technicality. There's even when you are submit an application before the court and probably the court doesn't even want to hear it. There are still things that we can do. It can go on appeal. It can, so it's not always the end. Um, so we'll try and make this episode a bit short so that people can be able to digest both like the first episode and the second episode, right? Um, so this is one question that is open-ended, right, for you, Isaac. It's something that you can, just flex with. What possible reforms can you suggest or recommend, to make since you've been on both side of situations? What reforms do you recommend to make these things smoother for both parties?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think the main recommendation I would make for this particular dilemma is experience in the judicial process of itself, because money is like the lifeline of most people. It's the economic lifeline of a
Mm,
lot of people. So you can't if you're having um a, your money hanging somewhere in the air or has been stolen or sent to someone and the person has cleared it, you need to act fast and you need to do it immediately. some of these processes take a lot of time. If I
mm,
remember, sorry, if I remember, the person we helped with this case in Abuja almost took a year before it was um
concluded.
finally said by the bank. I mean, but yeah, before the bank finally complied. So it took quite a while. And I mean, sometimes it takes a while for the clients to raise funds in order to get this kind of thing. But, sorry, it takes quite a while to get, even dates for some courts. It can take quite a while. Especially now that the judiciary is saying, oh, magistrate courts can't rule on freezing of accounts. If you take
Mm,
it to the high court, it's going to take a while before you get a date to even come for mention. And then if you get a
mm,
date for mention, you come for the mention is for the first time, and it's not going to go on that day because you need to ensure have you served this other guy? What did you get to serve him? Those are the questions they will ask, and then you now come back for. And depending on the route in which you take, I don't want to go into the technicalities of bit of someone's and or even someone's address, but the judicial process takes quite a while, and some of these matters are expedient. And I think that's why the court in Court of Appeal, Ikuloju Damola and AFCC ruled that see we're in an era where billions of naira can be transferred within minutes to anywhere in the world. So when you're looking at the speed of that kind of technology, and you are looking at the speed in which the judiciary tackles issues arising from that industry or that as a result of that technology, we are not meeting up anytime. It's like we're not meeting up, and it's quite a worry because if I transfer billions of naira to this account and we are still typing process on how we'll go to court and how we'll get the court before we even get date. If I can go and file tomorrow, Monday, and I will not get a date. I will not get a date this year again. It can
mm,
be that bad. And I think it's because the judiciary is of course is overwhelmed. We don't have enough judges, we don't have enough courts. There's a lot of cases pending and we need, you know, people, we need the workforce to dispense of these things early. I think so. What they practice in foreign jurisdiction is that there are specialized courts for this. There are
mm,
specialized courts for business and commercial disputes. There are specialized banks for banking, for courts for banking matters. Specialized courts for this. Although Nigeria is trying in that regard, there are specialized courts for certain things, but we are still not doing enough. So that idea of first get a court order before you freeze this person's account, first get a court order before you reverse this person's account, it's quite out of play in this kind of
mm,
situation. I mean, if your money is if your money has been mistakenly transferred and the person that depleted it, it's almost virtually impossible to get that money back. It's
mm,
almost virtually impossible. I remember a lady I helped with this kind of situation. She mistakenly, I mean, she was involved in a crypto transaction. The person decided to scam her. She sold coins to the person, I think USDT or so. And this person, instead of, you know, she sold coins. Okay, so she bought, I think I can't remember. Okay, she bought, yes. She sent about 3.8 million to the guy. The guy, instead of sending her the coins, sat on it and refused to release it to her. So she had about 3.8 million right there in the blink. So she reached out to me. Although one thing that I appreciated that she did was that she reported to her bank and her bank reported to the guy's bank because she had his details. Her bank reported to the guy's bank, and by the time they were able to do that, they were able to secure 2 million that was in his account. The rest he has already dispersed of it because of transaction limits for the day and everything. Wasn't able to move the whole thing out here, but he had already transferred it to other accounts and as well. So they were able to catch him with 2 million naira in his account. So we were
mm,
able to reverse that 2 million, but only because that account was restricted during that period. Although it still took weeks, I think even more than a month for us to finally get the order, but we
mm,
finally did, and it was only possible because that account was restricted on time and it was restricted up to the point in which we got that order. So, if there's one recommendation I would make to the judiciary is to make these matters more expedient and faster. That's it
mm.
all.
Thank you very much. That's very important. There are still many things that we could, go through about this topic, but if we start going deeper, it becomes maybe a bit more technical and it might bore you guys. The most important thing a client is most concerned about is how to recover his money. That's the most important thing. And the process around it. And we've been able to, develop that through the course of these two episodes. I mean, you guys can also provide more topics we can talk about, legal matters, even things beyond legal matters, to even things that concern nation building too. You can also contribute to that. We'll discuss more of this in our next episodes. So please just stay tuned with us. If you have any question, you can send it to the email address that is going to be attached. We're also, I mean, depending on how much you get questions, we're going to be reading them on the next episodes. Yeah, so we'll wrap it up here. So thank you very much, Isaac, once again. Thank you very much for this insightful session. Uh, See you next episode. Thank you very much, guys.